All right, so thank you for joining me today. We're going to be taking an overview of the GW Drupal Classic theme. Here's a quick look at our agenda for the day. We're just going to be talking about the system in general, the content types, which are your page templates, the home page, your site navigation. We'll talk a little bit about web accessibility, the different permission levels in the backend of the system, as well as the workbench dashboard, so that backend admin that you all see. And then we'll actually log into a site and do some hands-on editing. So I'm going to be working in a test site today. Normally, if we were doing this session face-to-face, I would give you all access to that test site as well, but today we're just going to have you follow along via the WebEx. So at any point, if you do have any questions, feel free to put them into the chat. You can send them a message privately. You can also send one so that everybody in the group can see it as a whole. I will try my best to answer questions as we're going along in the flow of the presentation, but I'll also try and make sure that there's some time at the end of everything to get those questions answered if we're unable to do so in the moment. So, what is Drupal? Drupal is a core package of code. It contains the bare bones structure and functionality of a content management system. And a content management system basically, or literally, it's what allows somebody who has no coding or web design expertise to be able to manage a website from the content perspective. So it allows a site owner to just have control of their content, to input it into the content management system, and then that system picks up a web page and then cumulatively a website, again, just by managing the content. So content management systems, there are two versions of them. An open CMS is typically free, which Drupal is. A closed one is one that you would have to pay somebody for access to. So Drupal is an open CMS. It can be downloaded from free off of the internet and then custom designed and developed to suit the specific needs of a website. And you can see over there in the right-hand corner a screenshot of what an out-of-the-box Drupal site looks like. It has no branding. It has no advanced functionality. It is literally just that blue bar at the top with that white space in the middle and a search box. And any content that you uploaded would go into that white space as a web page without any branding. So what is GW Drupal? GW Drupal launched in 2012. It's the university's customized version of a Drupal installation. It's the official platform for any academic or administrative websites at the university. It's an enterprise service, so that means that all users share the platform styles, features, and functionality. Those styles were designed to be in compliance with GW's identity standards and guidelines, and the features that are built into it were built to meet the broad user base's needs. So when we say that we can't do any custom design or custom development, it goes back to the fact that it's enterprise. Any change that we make for one user would affect all other users. So that's why we're unable to do custom templates and custom built features and functionality because, again, it would affect all users using the system. And that's also why when a new feature is suggested to us, we always have to go back to the teams that manage GW Drupal, and that's marketing and creative services as well as the division of IT, and make sure that we're still in compliance with all of our standards, guidelines, and policies, but also anything that we're doing to the system is going to be beneficial to the broad user base and not just a select few. So GW Drupal content types, these are the building blocks of your website. They are page templates that are specifically designed and developed to present your content in a specific manner. So you always want to make sure you're using the appropriate content type to make sure your pages function as expected, because a lot of the times a certain type of functionality that you might want to use requires that you use the appropriate content type. And here I have an example of if you want an automatic feed of events, then you're required to use the event page content type to be able to generate that automatic feed. There are probably close to a dozen or so content types in the back end of the system. We're going to take a quick overview of some of them and deep dive into a few others. But you always just want to make sure that you are picking the correct one, again, for the type of long-term functionality that you want your web page and your site to have in general. So knowing that that event page content type is also going to then give you the ability to have a feed that you might want to have on your home page. So So the content types can be categorized into three categories. The first one being detail pages, and these are what create standalone pages on your website. So this is when somebody clicks on a link and goes to a page on your site. That's a detail page, which is a standalone page. The next category is inherited content. These are elements that you would create once and then display globally throughout your site. So the biggest example that we see in the classic site is that blue header at the top of your site. That's a global inherited element. It was created once. It's being shown across every single page of your website. If you needed to make an update to that header, you just find it in the back end of your site, make the edit on the one piece of content, and then it gets updated globally throughout the rest of your site because all of your detail pages are inheriting it. And then your last content type category is specialized content, and these are really supportive elements that you add to your pages, whether it be a detail page or your home page. They don't create standalone pages themselves. However, they can kind of jazz up and provide additional functionality and information on a detail page. So when you're talking about detail pages, you're talking about your general content page, which is your basic page, your article page, your event page, the person page, and the web form. And going into a little more detail on those, starting with general content, this is your basic page template. It is the most commonly used content type. You'll see it a lot of times. It's your about page, you're talking about your programs. It's the most commonly used one because it allows you to just get your information out there without really any dynamic kind of functionality behind it. So that's why it's used for a basic page. It has an optional left and right sidebar. So with that left sidebar, if you have sub-navigation, that's where you'll see it listed, but you can also put supportive elements over there. And then in the right sidebar is really just specifically for any feeds or specialized supportive elements that you might want to add. You have your title show at the top in this area, and then you have your main image and your text show. And in the classic theme, just know that you do have to size your images specifically for the region of the page that you want them on, and I will be sharing those dimensions with you guys. In the main image section, if it's not spanning the width of the entire text area, so in this case we have a 3-column page, and you can see where the text stops on the right-hand side, and you can actually see in this example the image isn't going all the way to that side. The text does wrap around it. So keep that in mind whenever you're putting your main image in your classic site, that you want to make sure that it's sized appropriately for that space, whether you want text wrap or not. Next, we have the article page content type, and this is for any news type information. It displays a publication date, and it's used to create an automatic news feed or article archive, and the chronology of that feed is based on the publication date. So just like with your general content page, your article page type has an optional left and right sidebar, and again, if you have sub-navigation, that's going to get listed for you in that left sidebar. And this is also an example of a main image that has been set to go the full width of the middle column and right sidebar, since there is no right supportive content there, and then all of the text now begins beneath it. Next, we have the event page. It displays a right sidebar with all of your event logistics. So when your event's taking place, where it's taking place, your contact information, and there's additional fields that you can put in for the logistics that will also show up in that space, but those are the three most commonly used: the when, the where, and contact information. There's also this customizable cyan call to action button link. It can say whatever you want it to say and link to whatever you want it to link to. So in on our website, we typically have it linked to a web form page, but you can also link it to an Eventbrite page if that's what you're using. You can also link it directly to an email address. And again, it can say whatever you need it to say. The left sidebar is available for any sub-navigation if that's present, but this page template actually does not support right or left supportive specialized content, and that's because we want to make sure that we're keeping the focus on the event and not distracting the users with additional information that can take them away from the event before they've registered for it or whatever it is that they need to do with this event page. The next page content type is the person page, and this is your biography page. So It provides one main body text area for a brief overview, and then on the back end, you'll actually be able to see there are additional text fields that you can fill in if you really want to drill in to this person's biography and give more detail. So you can go in detail about their education, any awards that they might have earned, any publications that they might have out there. It really does allow you to go very deep and very robust with these biographies. So it's great. If you need a really shallow one, you can do that maybe for a staff member, but if you're writing about a faculty member who's, got a very big biography, basically, they've been doing a lot of things during their tenure as a faculty member, you're able to provide a very, very robust biography for them instead. It has optional left and right sidebars as well. You can see in this case that when that right sidebar is empty, at the top, all of your text just shifts over in there, but your main image, which is the person's headshot, it does stay left aligned with their name and all of their contact information if that has been provided. And then you can also put any supportive information such as feeds or promotions, things along those lines, in either the left or right sidebar at your discretion. There's a question about if there will be a copy of the slides provided. Yes, I will be providing a copy of the slides as well as a link to the recording of today's session in the follow-up email to everybody. The last page content type is the web form. So this actually creates a fillable form on your page. Your submissions are logged in the back end of your Drupal site by default, but you can also set the form up to send out emails to anybody who needs to be notified. So you can send a confirmation to the person who submitted the form, as well as notifications to anybody who needs to follow up. The important thing to know with the results in the back end, if you need somebody to be able to log in and see them, that does require them having back end access to your website. So if you don't want anyone to have editorial access to the back end of your site, but you want them to be able to see the results from these web form submissions, set them up with an email notification so that they get that information. If you need somebody to be able to download and export the results, that does require back end access to the website, which is editorial access to the back end of your site, so keep that in mind. The left sidebar on this page will show any sub-navigation if that's present, but just like with our event page, no supportive left or right sidebar content is supported because, again, we don't want to be distracting your website visitors from the task at hand, which is filling out that form. The next category of content types is inherited content. So again, these are those elements where you create them once and then they display globally throughout your website. So that's your header for your interior pages, that's your hero banner. It's also the local brand and the local footer. So you can see here in this screenshot, we've got the header at the top, which is the blue header with the George portrait and our logo, the George Washington University. You also have space over on the right-hand side with the search bar, some institutional links, and then it's not displaying in this screenshot, but there's optionally a place for some social media icons just above that search bar. So that's your main header. It's one single element that's been created in the back end of the site, and it's being displayed across every page of your website. Any change made to that one header is going to display globally across your entire site. Beneath that, you have the local brand, so Cisneros Hispanic Leadership Institute. That local brand is identifying who the site owner is. And then it's always paired with the hero banner, which you can see to the right of it. And that banner, it can be decorative or informational. It can rotate or be static, which is what we have. In this case, it's not rotating. And then there's the option to always display a linkable caption. The thing to note with your hero, and really with all images across your entire website, is that a descriptive alternate text is required. That alternate text is what gets read aloud to somebody who might be using a screen reader or some other assistive device when they can't actually see the image for themselves. So again, your local brand is identifying who your site owner is, and then your hero banner over to the right of that is supporting the local brand, and it can be decorative or informational depending on what your needs are for your site. Then down at the very bottom, we have the local footer, and this is just providing some contact information about your office specifically. And there's also an optional space over to the right-hand side to display your social media icons, again, if you would like to. And I didn't note it here, but there's also the ability to have some quick text links as well. So if you wanted to have some text links that display repeatedly across your footer area, you would add those to your local footer, and they'll display right above the social media icons. And then our last content type is our specialized content. So again, this includes those elements where they don't create standalone pages, and they also do not display across your site globally. Instead, they're elements that you add to your pages, either your detail pages or your home page, to provide additional context, additional functionality, that type of thing. So your photo gallery, your promotions, your social icons, and your content set. With your photo gallery, they're available in 3 sizes. You have the small for pages with 2 sidebars, medium for pages with 1 sidebar, and then the large for pages without sidebars. And it should be noted with that large, it actually will display them in a single column list, so one photo on top of the other. You won't actually have any thumbnails if you use the large version of the photo gallery. If you're using the small or the medium, you have 2 options for your thumbnails to display beneath the featured image, either in a grid or in a slider. And you can see in the screenshot to the left, this is actually an example of the grid. You can see the first 4 in the screenshot, and additional thumbnails would be displayed in additional rows beneath that top row. If it was a slider, you would see 2 arrows to the right and left of the 4 thumbnail photos there, and your users could then click with those arrows to see the additional images. Any caption that you put on any of your photos will display beneath the featured photo, as well as some numeration. So you can kind of see there, it says photo 1 of 7. That lets you know there's 7 photos total in this gallery. And then again, all photos do require descriptive alt text so that we are in compliance with web accessibility standards. Your promotions are used to create supportive sidebar elements, and these are pretty heavy hitters in Drupal. They can include a graphic or a photo, as well as some summary text. And then on the page themselves, you can have the sidebars hide the title, hide the summary, or hide the image, or any combination thereof. And this really allows you to get a lot of functionality out of your promotion. So in this screenshot, you can see the upcoming programs where we just have the title and the image showing there. But if we wanted to, we could hide that title so that we only have the image showing, and it's still functional and doing the job that we needed to do. In that right sidebar under Highlight Tours, you can see you have the photo, the title, and some summary text. So it's providing a little more information to our users. We'd also have the ability, again, to hide that image if we wanted to and just have that title and that summary text if that's all that we needed. Your promotions can link to documents. They can link to internal web pages on your website. They can link to web pages on an external website if you need them to. And then they can also feature video if you have a video that you wanted to highlight. They're a great way to be able to have those over in your sidebar without detracting from the main information in the body area of your page. Your social icons, they are just icons. They will link to your social media account. They don't really do anything more dynamic than that. They are supported in the header, the local footer, and then there's also a social media sidebar content set so that you can add that into the sidebar of your page. But again, it's just the icon of the various social media accounts that you might have that link directly over to your social media network accounts. And then the last content type is the content set. So these actually allow you to group existing content into single and often dynamic displays. They work with detail pages, heroes, promotions, and the social icons, which we just discussed a moment ago. The subtype that you choose when you select to create a content set is what will determine the display and the functionality. So here in this screenshot of the Student Accounts Office homepage, you can see a few content sets at play. So at the very top, you have the feature spotlight, which basically serves as a welcome message. It's a quick teaser snippet of a page that lets people know who you are, what you do. It includes a read more link down at the bottom, and then the user can go into that detail page. And often the feature spotlight will pull in a snippet from the about page to, again, let people know who you are, what you do, and what they can expect on your website. And then that read more link goes into your about page where they can get more information on your office history or whatever information it is that you're providing. In the number 2 spot, you can see the rotating sidebar there. It's a little difficult to see on my screen. I hope you guys can see it, but there are 3 dots underneath those promotions that are rotating through the sidebar, and that lets you know there are 3 slides in that rotator. But you can put detail pages into the rotators as well, the sidebar rotators. It's just a really good way to provide a lot of information in a condensed space. You do want to be careful not to overload your rotating sidebars because we do know that users typically will only see that first one, maybe the second one, but after the third one, you're really starting to drop off as far as how many people are seeing it. So you don't want to overload it with too many elements in there. Over in the number 3 area, we have a list sidebar. So that's really just your quick links list. You can link to pages within your own website, pages external to your website, so anybody else's website, whether they're another GW office or a non-GW website at all. And you can also link to documents. So it's a really good way to have a quick links list in your sidebars to use the content set. In the middle column under the feature spotlight, we have the image teaser, and this will allow you to feature actually up to 4 promotions in a 2x2 grid, so for a total of 4. And typically these are actions that you want people to see very prevalently. Most often it's used on the home page, but we also see them on landing pages. And again, it does require the use of an image. It is an image teaser, and it allows you to have that 2x2 grid for a total of 4 promotions to be featured. And it works best when they're action-oriented or if it's a cohesive sort of service-type information that you want to provide to your users. And then finally, the number 5 is the repeating sidebar. So this is a content set that allows you to put information in your sidebar that's actually going to, very much like your global elements, really get repeated throughout your sidebar. But based off of keyword tagging in the back end, you can either have it inherited globally throughout your entire site or just to a given section of your site. And again, that's based off of keyword tagging with site placement. In this example, we are featuring a promotion, but it also supports detail pages in that space as well. Any questions so far? All right, we're going to keep going then. So the next thing we're going to take a look at is your website. So you'll notice whenever you're in the back-end editing that there is no edit button, and that is on purpose. Again, it's the front door to your website, so you should be using feeds, specialized content, and teasers from your detail pages to draw users deeper into your site. You never want to have something on your homepage that's sort of a dead end where there's nowhere else to go once they've seen it on your homepage. Anything that you want to feature on your homepage should be added using a site placement value of home. So I was speaking a moment ago about tagging content with the repeating sidebar. I was referring to site placement with that tag. And in this case, anything that has been tagged with the site placement value of home will show up on your homepage. So again, it's your front door to your website, so you're not going to have an edit button because you're really pulling in content from deeper in your site. So you should be using feeds, supportive content, and teasers from your detail pages, drawing users deeper into your site. Or in the case of maybe promotions, you might be sending people off of your site. But really, you should never have content on your homepage be a dead end where there's nowhere else for your users to go once they've landed there. Your site navigation, there are 2 versions available. In this one, we see the horizontal navigation bar underneath where it says Office for Study Abroad. So your navigation is always going to be in that horizontal buff bar. If you have sub-navigation links, when your user hovers over them on desktop, they will show up in a drop-down menu. The other options for the navigation is the vertical list. So you can see on the Smoke-Free GW homepage, the navigation is in that left sidebar list, pretty reminiscent of what we see in sub-navigation for sites with the horizontal bar. It's always going to be showing in that left sidebar list, and as users click in for deeper navigation, the list will expand and indent for any sub-pages that you might have. The important thing to know about your site navigation is it is a wayfinding device. It's a wayfinding tool. So it should be helping to inform your users about content that they will find within your website. It should be intuitive as far as the path that users would take to get to information deeper in your site. So it should not be used to promote something. For instance, if you have a new program and you want to, really give it some prominence, don't add a new navigation link and say new program, because it's actually not the best way to promote that item on your site. You want to instead be looking at using maybe a promotion and maybe featuring it on your homepage by giving the landing page for your new program a site placement value of home with a nice little teaser that people can read and then click into the detail page. You don't want to add that navigation link, because eventually what you're going to find is your navigation gets a little bit messy because you've got all of these sort of one-off things that have been added to it, but it's not really intuitively navigating people to content within your site. You also don't want to have links to external websites or external applications in your navigation. So this goes back again to the fact that we should be informing people and guiding people to content within your own website. If you're linking to something off of your website, you're not doing that. And you're also potentially confusing your users. It's not good for accessibility if somebody is navigating with the keyboard or with the screen reader and they're suddenly on somebody else's website entirely. It can be very jarring and confusing for your users, whether they're looking at your website on a traditional desktop or not, or using an assistive device. It can be very jarring and confusing for your users if they're suddenly no longer on your site. So even if it's a website that you're affiliated with or an application that you own, you don't want to do that. Instead, again, look to use a supportive element like a promotion, or maybe tease something from a detail page and then click people over into that external service from that supportive element or the detail page. Any questions on your navigation? Okay, so let's talk about web accessible content. I've kind of teased it a little bit, talking about alternative text and things along those lines. Web accessibility refers to ensuring that your website content is accessible to all users, regardless of if they're on a web browser, on a desktop, using an assistive device, even using a mobile phone. Websites will function differently for people depending on the device that they're using. So again, the screen readers, if they're using keyboard-only navigation, things along those lines. You want to make sure that regardless of what tool they're using, they can still get the information that they need off of your website, and they can still complete the tasks that they need to do when they're on your website. What's really important to know is that it's not just a best practice, but it's also a legal requirement. So we always have to make sure that anything that we build in the system is accessible, and it's a partnership is what it comes down to. Within marketing, creative services, and the division of IT, we're always making sure that any designs that we do and any features and functionality that we build into the system, they're going to be accessible for your users. But then the next step in that partnership is that you have to make sure that the content that you put into the framework that we provided to you is accessible as well. So making sure that your headings are used to identify topics on your pages and they're not used as decoration. You're not making things heading 3s all over the place just because you want the bigger, bolder font, but because you're talking about topics specifically on that page. Always entering descriptive alternate text, also known as alt tags, on all of your images, so that if somebody can't see that image for whatever reason, they're still able to absorb the information. Using your navigation for wayfinding on your site, not to promote external sites or services. And then using the other GW Drupal features as instructed to ensure that your websites are accessible. It always comes back to, we've made sure that any feature that we put in there, any design that we've created, we know that it's accessible, we know that it's going to have legal requirements, but we do need to make sure that you guys are using them appropriately so that they actually do pass those requirements as well. We have a much longer presentation on website accessibility that we did last year. We'll probably be doing it again shortly, but I'll be sure to also share those tips and tricks and information with you guys in the follow-up email as well. But if you have any questions, feel free to ask me. So talking about Drupal user roles, we get a lot of questions about what can people do and not do in Drupal. There are 3 levels of permissions in the backend of Drupal. The first one, and the one with the most permissions, is site administrator. So a site admin can create and edit pages, edit those menu settings for those pages, publish the content to the front end, And then they can also do what's called customizing the page, and that's adjusting the layout of a page on a case-by-case basis. So if you have something in one sidebar and you want it somewhere else, you can do that. If you want to adjust the way the image shows, things along those lines. Site admins can also manage additional site customization options, getting to some of the advanced configurations like creating RSS feeds. They can edit the global content types, so your header and the local footer. Those are elements, again, that will display across your entire site. So you want to make sure that you don't have somebody with who's going to be in your office short term or doesn't have full editorial approval within your office. You don't want them having access to manage and update those global elements. So that is restricted to site admins. And then finally, site admins can manage other user accounts within the site. So this really should be the person who has full administrative control over the website, because they will be the one who grants and rescinds access to the site as the site admin. A step down from that is your content supervisor, and this is somebody who really just needs to be managing the content of your site, maybe in a day-to-day basis, maybe a little less frequently, but they need to have access to manage the content on the back end of the site. So they can also create and edit pages, edit the menu settings for those pages, publish content, and customize the layout of the pages, but they can't get into those advanced things, the global elements, or manage user accounts. And then the lowest level is the content contributor, and this person can really just create content and then edit the menu settings for those pages. However, they cannot publish those pages to the front end. So these are the accounts that you typically see given to somebody who's only going to temporarily be with an office. So maybe it's a contract worker or student worker, something along those lines, where you just need them to help you get information into the site, but either a content supervisor or a site admin would have to come behind them, review their content, and then publish it to the front end. And again, a site admin has the ability to create other site admins accounts, content supervisor and content contributor accounts, and to also take those permissions away if necessary. And then the Workbench dashboard, this is just the dashboard that you'll see when you log in. It gives you a quick snapshot of any editorial activity on the site. Up in the upper right corner where you see My Edits, those are edits that have been made by you under your account. And then down at the bottom where it says All Recent Content, those are edits that have been published to the front end by anybody with editorial access to the website. So you can see under the My Edit section, there's a View All link that would take you to a longer listing of all of the edits, and you can toggle between whether seeing your own edits or all of the recent content edits by others as well. You'll also notice there's tabs in the upper right, and they will typically pertain to actions that you can take from the section of the site that you're in, the section of the backend admin, I should say. So in this case, since this is all about a snapshot of content edits that have been happening, all of these tabs relate to managing content in the backend. And then finally, there is the Drupal admin menu, that black bar at the top that you always see whenever you're logged into the back end of the site. And depending on what your permission level is, you're going to see just a handful of links up to a full suite of links. So what we're looking at right now is the Drupal admin menu for a content supervisor. You have the My Workbench link, which will take you back to the admin we were just looking at. The media link, it will display a list of all of the files that have been uploaded to the site. So all of the images and documents will be available for viewing under the media link. It's important to know that once a media asset has been uploaded, it's accessible across your site. You don't have to upload it again. So if you need to have one image show on 3 pages, once it's uploaded, you can access it for all 3 pages. You don't have to keep uploading it over and over again. The menu section allows you to reorganize your navigation links via a very convenient drag and drop interface. Node queues, we can't hide it and we can't turn it off, but you can completely ignore it. It doesn't do anything. And then taxonomy provides access to update keyword lists throughout your website. So you want to leave it as is unless you're instructed to change the taxonomy terms. This is where site placement terms get created, so your site placement list, and then any other keyword tags that might be applied throughout your site. That's all going to be done under taxonomy, but it requires very specific. It basically requires a very well thought out plan because the tagging has to be very specific. So you don't want to kind of go in there and say, well, I need a new term just for this one thing, so I'm going to create it. Well, now I need a new term for this other one thing, so I'm going to create it. because eventually after a year or two, you're going to have a very messy list of terms, and maybe not everybody in your office is up to speed on when and one term should be used versus another, and then it can just cause a big content managing headache for you. So again, you don't want to go in there and make changes unless you've either been instructed to do so, or if you've worked with one of the content strategists within marketing and creative services to figure out a very solid plan for how you're going to use keyword taxonomy. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get logged in now, and you guys are going to follow along as I do some edits. All right, so this is the Workbench dashboard for a test site that we use here in Marketing and Creative Services. You can see over here in the upper right corner any edits that I've made recently. So down here at the bottom, any edits that have been made by any other users are listed as well. And again, these are only the edits that have been published live to our website visitors. If somebody's working on something that's still in a draft mode, it's not going to be listed here for me to see. I can click on this View All link down at the bottom in either location and get to a full list of the content that's either been edited site-wide or to see my own edits if I would like. And now that I'm logged in, I can always click on this home text link or this white house icon, and that will always bring me to the front end of my site and keep me logged in, so I still have that black Drupal admin bar. We're going to create a page from scratch, but if I needed to make an edit to an existing page, all I would do is navigate to that page, either from the navigation now that I'm on the front end, or back under the dashboard, under either all of my edits or down here, View All for all recent content. I can search for a particular item, click on it, and edit it from here. And then once you're on the page that you want to edit, you would just click on the New Draft tab, and that's how you would get to that back-end editorial admin to actually make new changes. But again, we're going to be creating a page from scratch, and the way that I'm going to do that, I'm going to hover over My Workbench, and then I'm going to click on Create Content. That's going to bring me to this list of all of the content types that I have access to based on my permission levels, which is Site Administrator in the back end of the site. You'll notice I have a lot of different links here in my Drupal admin. I don't have to go to nearly any of them, except for the ones pertaining to managing content. So this list is a great place to go if you're not familiar with the different content types and you want to have a quick summary of what each one is before you get started working, because once you've started creating a page or a supportive element, if you realize halfway through it needs to be something else, or after you've already committed, saved it and created the page that it needs to be a different type of content type, you can't switch it. You do have to recreate it. So just to give yourself a quick teaser about what something is, I highly recommend coming to this page. We are going to be creating a general content page. And again, you guys can just follow along watching me on the screen. You actually don't have access to the back end of the site, so you won't be able to follow these steps. If you have back-end access to a Drupal site that you currently manage and you want to follow along, that is at your discretion. But otherwise, please just feel free to follow along watching via the WebEx. So anytime you see that red asterisk, that's letting you know that a field is required. Something has to be put into that field. With my subtype for my basic page, I'm going to leave it, my subtype for my general content page, I'm going to leave it set to basic because I don't need to make any changes. And that's generally the case with a general content page. You don't have to change the subtype on it. You do want to pay attention for your article page, your event page, your content sets, and your person pages. In those cases, it actually does become more imperative that you're picking the appropriate subtype. Your title field is always going to be required. However, titles do not have to be unique. So you always want to make sure that you're making the title as unique as you can while still being easy for you to understand what it is on the back end as an administrator, but also useful to your users on the front end as far as letting them know what the page is about. So I'm just going to call this Natasha's page. But what ends up happening is if you have multiple pages all with the same title, the page link, it gets picked up from this title field by default. You are able to customize it, but most people don't. So what we see a lot is we'll have .edu/Natasha's page, and then as I create more and more pages called Natasha's page, you'll see Natasha's page 0, Natasha's page 1, Natasha's page 2, Natasha's page 3, so on and so forth, until I stop duplicating the title, essentially. So again, you just want to make sure that you're making those titles as unique as possible so that you're not ending up with that sort of unfriendly URL structure as a result. I'm leaving the subtitle field blank because we don't need it. And then before I get into my body editor, I'm going to expand right here where it says Edit Summary. This is just a hidden text field that you can use to create teasers for a page. It comes in really useful on your article and event pages because if you have a feed and instead of just the title, you also want to show a summary, this is what that summary could pull from. It's not required at all. You can hide it again just by clicking hide, and you can just allow the system to look to see what you have in your body text field instead, and it will pull somewhere between the first 300 to 350 characters as the summary. So since it's automatically pulling that, that means that your summary could get cut off in the middle of a sentence, sometimes even in the middle of a word. So if you want to have more control over what that summary is going to be, I highly recommend using this summary field here that's hidden next to the body label. So you just click on Edit Summary, put in whatever summary you want to be there, and then that's all you need to do. You can go in and then do the body field as usual. Do keep in mind that your summary field, it's got about 150 character limit, so just a little bit more than a tweet, so you have to be really concise and to the point with that summary. So I'm going to hide that again, and we're going to go into our body text editor. This is called a WYSIWYG editor for short, and that's an acronym for what you see is what you get. That's about 80 to 90% true. It's not going to be a 100% representation of what you're going to see on the front end, but it's going to be very, very close. So I'm going to go to this tab right here. I've got some sample text ready to go. I'm using a Mac, so I'm going to hit Command A to highlight everything. It's Control A on a Windows PC, and then Command C. And now the habit is once we copy something to our clipboard, we just hit Control or Command V. But the problem with that, you can see, is that we have brought over all of those funky styles that I had in that Google document. So you don't want that to happen on your web page. And you can kind of go in here and try and manually clean it up. But what's also happening and is harder to see is that you're also pasting in HTML code and CSS code from that other program or website that you copied your text from. So I'm pulling in HTML and CSS from Google Docs, but you can also do that if you're copying from a Word document, a PDF, somebody else's website, and you can't see that and you can't see the effect that it's having on your web page until you click that save button, and then suddenly the formatting just doesn't look right and you can't figure it out because it doesn't look messed up in this text editor, but it's looking messed up on that front end of the web page. It's because you just hit Control V without stripping out any of the styles that you picked up along the way. So I'm going to highlight all of that again and delete it. Instead of just hitting Control V, you want to use one of these two options in your WYSIWYG editor dashboard. The middle one is Paste as Plain Text. It's going to strip out all styles and all of that code that you can't see, but you are going to have to go back in and redo any basic styles that might have been in there. So any bolding, bullets, things along those lines, you'll have to add those back in manually. If you use Paste from Word, this option will actually try to maintain that basic formatting for you. So this is the most popular one. I'm going to use that now. You see that you get a new window that opens up. You can just paste your text into there and then click OK. And now we can see all of those extra font styles that were going on and other funky things. Those are all gone. There's still a little bit of cleanup I need to do. All of those empty paragraphs are in there, creating a lot of white space that I don't need. So I'm going to delete that now. I think that's it. Okay, yeah, that's it. All right, so that's how you paste text into your WYSIWYG editor. If you need to do some formatting, you have most of your standard options for a word processing service in the suite of icons there, but I do want to bring your attention to This drop down right here where you see normal, these are your paragraph formats, and this is where you will create your subheads. So heading 3 is really the only one that's got any styles to it. So if you have a subhead on the page, you want to highlight that text. And I'll do that again here for hyperlinks. Go to your paragraph styles, which you can find under this drop down that says normal, and then select heading 3. Now again, this is an accessible function so that if a user who maybe is using a screen reader needs to get to a specific topic on the page, they can tell their screen reader, ignore all of the paragraph text, just read me the subheads on the page. That way they can get to where they need to be quickly. If you haven't used the subhead heading 3, sometimes also referred to as an H3, they're not going to be able to find that particular subhead. So it doesn't matter if you've made it bold, if you've made it other colors, if you've underlined it, they're not going to be able to find it because it doesn't have the appropriate HTML tags around it to make it a subhead. So always highlight the text that needs to be a subhead and go to your paragraph styles and use heading 3 to make your, well, I just undid it, but to make your subhead. I'm just going to quickly make these two lists bulleted and numbered. Anytime that you can use a bulleted or numbered list, definitely do it. We know that people do not read websites page by page and line by line, so they're looking really to see if they can scan a website very quickly. Bulleted and numbered lists go a long way to allowing you to do that, so definitely recommend using those as much as possible. We're next going to take a look at the rules of hyperlinks, and there are not a lot of rules, and they're not very difficult. Really, it comes down to making sure that your links are contextual. Always making your links contextual is the most important thing that you can do. And what that means is finding the words within a sentence in plain English that describe what you're linking to, and then making those words your link. You never want to spell out the raw URL, so you never want to have www. Whatever the website is. And that goes to mostly to accessibility, but also to search engine optimization. Those assistive devices that I mentioned before, like screen readers, just like they can skip over all of the paragraph text and just read the subheads, they can also just skip over all of the regular text and subheads and say, just read me the links on the page because there's something I need to do and I know the link is on this page. So just find it for me quickly. If you have your link spelled out like this, www.gw.edu, depending on the device that they're using, it's either going to read that link to them letter by letter, or it's going to actually read it as a word. And that's not very useful for that person at all, but it also doesn't tell them why you put that link on the page, because remember, they're not listening to the text around the link, they're just listening to the link. So if they were looking for an application, they're not going to know that this link is where they need to go for that application. So that's why it's important for accessibility to include those contextual links. And then similarly, that's what your search engine optimization, search engine crawlers rather, are looking for as well. They're looking to see what you say you're linking to and why you say you're linking to it. So are you linking to an application form versus the PDF link? Are you linking to a sign-up form, a new program, an organization or an institute, something along those lines? They want to see what that context is. They don't want to see what that link destination is. So SEO and accessibility are both looking for the same things when it comes to contextual links, and it's just more useful for everybody all around. You also don't want to add extra styles to your links, so bolding and underline and italics. This goes back to really how this is an enterprise service. All of the links are styled to perform the same way, and we've made sure that they're accessible for people with visual disabilities who maybe need to have a specific amount of contrast between the white background and the color of the font, as well as how the links behave when they're hovered over or not hovered over, so to speak, with the mouse. So if you start, and because that style is in the system at its core, all of the websites in this system, their links will behave the same way. If individual users start doing different treatments to their links, it can start being confusing for the users to know when something is linked and when something is not. So that's why you never really want to add extra styles to your links. And with underlining specifically in general, you don't want to underline anything unless you absolutely have to for like a citation purpose, just because that is still a legacy trigger for us to think that something is a link. So if it's not, it can create a negative experience for your users who might have seen it and thought it was a link and then realized it didn't click on anything. And then also, when it comes to creating your contextual links, be careful not to use click here or really nondescript generic terms is what it comes down to. So with those contextual links, if somebody is listening to the page being read out loud and only hearing the links, and all of your links say click here, they're not getting any context out of it. If all of them say read more, they're not getting any context out of it. And you'll also get dinged from that from an SEO standpoint, because they'll also say there's no context here to know what this is linking to. So it actually might not meet the needs of the search engine or the searcher who got on your web page. So make your links contextual about the action you want them to take, what you're linking to, whatever the case might be. So to actually create a link, it's really simple. If you're linking to a page internally on your site, find the contextual link. So to link internally to other pages. That's going to be my contextual link. I'm going to highlight that text and then click on this little global link icon in the link suite. And then all you need to do is start typing in the name of a page. The little circle over here at the end of this field with the link type set to Drupal, that's letting me know that I'm linking to another site in my, or another page in my Drupal site. So once I start typing something in, Drupal's going to look for matching results and give me a list, an auto-completed list that I can pick my result from. Once I see the one I want, I click on it, and then I just click OK, and then I've got my link to my internal page of my own site. If you're linking to an external site, so again, this is any other website that is not this site, even if it's another GW website. Again, find the words that contextually apply to what you're linking to. Click on that global link icon and then change your link type to URL. And then in this new field, preferably paste in the link that you're going to. In this case, it's short enough, I'm going to type it in, but we want to make sure that we're not having typos. So whenever you can, paste it in. The next thing you want to do is go to this target tab and then set that link to open in a new window. And what that's going to do is when they click on the link, your website will remain open in the original browser tab or window, and this new website will open up in a new browser tab or window. That way they don't lose their place in your site, but they can also get to this information on this other site. You never want to send somebody off of your site without having them also stay within your own site in the original browser tab or window, just because they might end up some sort of rabbit hole, forget what they were doing, and then they'll say, oh, great, I still have that tab open, versus where was I got to find that all over again. So to link to documents, it's pretty similar to linking to external websites. Again, contextually highlight the what you want your link to be. And before I do that, there's another step that you want to do. So put the document type in parentheses. This is going to help your users on mobile, and it's going to help your users using assistive devices. They're going to either see or hear that it's a document link and then be able to decide for themselves if they want to click it on their mobile or assistive device, or if this is the point where they need to actually call somebody for additional help, especially for assistive devices who maybe are linking into PDFs. PDFs are notoriously inaccessible for users with screen readers. So at that point, they might need to call your office to actually be able to do the tasks they need to do. And on mobile devices with documents, they typically get downloaded as opposed to open up in a website browser. And most people I know get annoyed when they accidentally download documents to their phone or tablet. So by putting that document type in PDF, or I'm sorry, in parentheses, it just lets the user know this is a document link. So let me decide if I need to wait till I'm in front of a desktop, or if I actually need to speak to a human at this point to take the next step. Once you have your contextual link highlighted and you've clicked on the global link icon, you'll want to change your link type to URL again. And this time you're going to click on that Browse Server button. This is going to bring up your file browser, which is going to show you any documents in the download folder or images in the image folder that have already been uploaded to the site. Again, once something's uploaded once, you can just keep reusing it over and over again. So I'm just going to highlight Test PDF. That's what I'm going to use. If my document wasn't there, I could click on this Upload button and actually go through the steps of uploading from my hard drive. But since it is here, again, I'm just going to highlight this. I can either click on Insert File or double click, it does the same action. And now we can see that I've got my document link there. Before I click OK, just like I did with an external website, I'm going to set that to open in a new browser tab or window. And that way, anybody who is maybe on a desktop and chooses to click on this link, it's just like with the external website, it's going to open in a new browser tab or window. That's another legacy thing for us. Once we're done with the document, we say, okay, I'm done, and we just close the window. But then they've also closed your website window in that case if you have not set it to open in a new browser tab or window, but they might still need it to do something outside of reading that document. So by setting it to open in a new tab, you're allowing them to stay on your website even though they're finished with that document. And then the next thing I'm going to actually do is I'm going to go all the way down to the bottom. I'm clicking site placement because it's required. And I'm going to click save. Drupal's got about a 20-minute timeout period. So if you're working in the back end of the site and you haven't clicked a button within 20 minutes, you're liable to get logged out and lose all of your work. So you always want to kind of be keeping an eye on the clock and clicking the save button just to make sure that you don't lose your work. We can already see our page going, not very fancy, so nothing exciting to look at, but we can see we've got our text in there, we've got our links, and I'm sorry, I'm going to go back to the page I was just on. When you're ready to get back into the back end of the page to keep doing edits, you just want to click on the Edit Draft tab, and that will get you back into that Edit Admin. I'm going to go back down into our text editor, and the last link that we're going to look at is actually a fairly new option that we rolled out back in 2015, maybe 2016. Early 2016. It allows you to create button links. So something we were hearing from a lot of our users is, I need to create a link, but it's just a really quick link that I need to get out there. I don't need to write a whole paragraph around it. I just need a link. How can I do that as like a button or something? So we created button links. All you need to do is create your contextual link just like we did with all of these rules up here. So I've highlighted create your hyperlink to be my contextual link. I'm going to click on my global link icon. I'm actually going to link to an external website, but you can use this button links to link internally to other sites, link to external websites, link to documents. All of the same rules as before apply. So setting external links and documents to open in a new window, putting the document type in parentheses, all of that applies when you're using the button links as well. Once you have your simple text link created, and while you still have the text highlighted, you then want to go to your styles dropdown. And once you open that, you'll see you've got all of these button styles to choose from, and you just click on the one that you want. The buttons have a rollover state that is compliant with accessibility standards. There are 3 sizes: small, medium, and large. So you can have a really big button if you need to have a big button. There are 4 colors that you can see. Let me see. So you've got the dark blue, the light blue, green, and yellow. And then there are 2 styles, and that is the standard button where you've got the background fill with white text, and then there's the ghost button where there is no background, but there is a border around the button, and then you have your text in the middle in the appropriate color, except for yellow, which we would never do yellow text. If you decide you don't like the style that you've selected, just highlight your text. And I missed the C. And then next to the paste from Word option, there's a little eraser. You just want to click on that eraser, and that takes you back to just having a simple text link, and then you can go back in and pick a different style. So I'm going to pick my medium light blue button. It's important to make sure you erase the style in between selecting a new one. Otherwise, what ends up happening on the front end is, well, let me tell you what happens on the back end first. The code from the original button you selected does not get erased. So then on the front end, what might end up happening is you've got those 2 dueling pieces of code there on the back end, and they might both be trying to battle for supremacy, for lack of a better term. So you might have a small button on rollover become a really big button. We've seen that happen a handful of times. It's not difficult to fix. You just have to go back in, highlight the text, click on that eraser, and then pick the button style that you want. But until you do that, you might see some wonkiness. But again, this is a quick way to have a simple button link without having to have a whole paragraph of text around it just to get that contextual link. It can go in any text editor, so all of your detail pages, as well as in your promotions if you want to have one in your sidebar instead. Any questions on the WYSIWYG text editor? Okay. So one last thing before I move on from the text editor, do know that you can have images in line in your text editor. That's under this icon here. You do have to have them set to the specific width that you want them to display on the page. If you're looking to have a featured image, however, you want to scroll down past your text editor and go to your main image section. There you'll click on File Browser, which will open up. It'll say no file selected, so you'll just click Browse again. And then again, it'll bring you into that image folder in File Browser. You can upload an image if you need to, or you can pick one, that's already been uploaded that you want to use. You do have to make sure that the file is at the appropriate dimension. So I'm going to go through the steps of uploading an image here. Photo. We've got a nice little image of ruffles. We'll upload that. And you get a preview of your image down here. You can see the dimensions of it listed here. This is also what lets you know whether or not the image is going to meet the image requirements that you need, and I will share those with everybody in the follow-up email. And you also get the date that the image was uploaded. Each one of these columns can be this listing can be sorted by each one of these columns. So if you want to sort by the width, you can sort by the width. If you want to sort by when the image was uploaded, you can sort by that as well. And clicking on it twice changes it from ascending to descending. So I'm going to go ahead and click Insert File. So now that we have that image in there, we've got two new fields. The first one is our required alternate text field. And again, this is what allows a user who can't see this image to still know what's going on in the photo. It should be brief and to the point, letting them know what's going on in the photo or the graphic. If this is a graphic with text, any text that was on that graphic needs to be in this alternate text field. And this is the main reason why we say you should not be using posters or other PDF documents as the main image of either your page or your promotion, because all of the text that you have in that PDF needs to go into your alternate text field, and that becomes highly unusable for somebody using a screen reader. If an image is decorative, the bar, so to speak, for what your alt text is a little bit lower versus if an image is informative. So if there's critical information in a photo or a graphic, that's what you need to be putting here. If it's decorative, it's not quite as stringent as far as what you need to be putting here. So I literally can just put dog because it's a picture of a dog. If I wanted to get into details, I could say President Nap's dog ruffles, but again, this is a decorative image, so it doesn't have to be that stringent. Dog will suffice in this case. The title field, if somebody's on a desktop and leaves their mouse hovered over the image, whatever I put in this title field is what will show up in a pop-up for them. Usually, people will take their alt text and use it as their title text as well. I'm not going to use it in this case. It's not really going to do anything for my page. You can have a caption on your image if you want, so I can say, if you had a video, YouTube or Vimeo, you could have that video featured by using the video link and title field. We have a video that I will share with you guys that walks through the steps for using that field, but I'm going to skip over it for now. Just know that it does require that you use the main image field, and what ends up happening is this main image gets a play button overlaid on top of it. When your user clicks on it, a video lightbox player pops up. They can watch the video quickly. Your website page is in the background underneath it. When they're done with the video, they can close the player and they're still on your web page. So again, it requires use of the main image, and it's supported by Vimeo and YouTube, and I will share that link with you guys in the follow-up. Moving on, we have our right and left sidebar content fields. This is how you add content to your sidebars. A lot of people struggle with doing that. They say, I want to add a promotion or a quick links list. How do I do that? Go to the page where you want that item to be. Scroll down to the right and left sidebar fields. It's looking for pre-existing content. So again, you see this little circle that's letting you know it's looking for pre-existing content. You can't create the quick links list from this admin. You have to already have it created in the back end of your site. And you just start typing in the name of it and picking it from the list, and that's all you need to do. If you needed to take something down, again, come to the page in question, click on the New Draft tab, come down to your sidebar content fields, and delete the reference to the item that you no longer want to show there, and that will remove it from the sidebar of your page. Site placement, I mentioned this earlier when we were looking at the slides, and I quickly breezed through it before, but this is how you tag the page as far as within its the hierarchy of the site, or taxonomy keyword tagging. So this is what tells the system if this page should inherit a global element or not. Anything tagged for home is being tagged to actually display on your home page, and if it's a global element or an inherited element, it's actually being tagged to display throughout the website. So you never want to use home capriciously. You only want to use it if that item's supposed to show up on your home page or if it's supposed to be inherited throughout the rest of your website. Otherwise, you should be picking the tag that corresponds to its navigational bucket. So we have a navigational Drupal training bucket. This page will fall under it, so I'm tagging it for Drupal training. If I create any element that should only show up under the Drupal training section, it will now get that element via this site placement tag. If your tags do not match your navigation, come to office hours and we'll help you get that all sussed out and get it so that it's matching and working effectively for you. I'm skipping over tagging just because, again, it's very robust and very specific, so you don't want to go in there and start ad hoc creating tags unless you have a very solid plan. Work with your site administrator and one of our content strategists to come up with a plan for your keyword tagging. That way it works for you for years to come without causing any headaches for you. Now, just like with the admin, depending on your permission level, you're not going to see all of the tabs that I see here, so I'm skipping over Panelizer for that reason. It's not available to everybody. And I'm going to go to menu settings. You always, always, always want to check your provide a menu link checkbox. Check that the menu link title, which gets automatically pulled from whatever your page title is what you want it to be. If you do not like what the link title is, you can manually change it here. So if I didn't want Natasha's page, I can say Drupal 101 page. It's not going to change my page title. It's only going to change that link. It can come in very helpful if you have a very long, let's say you're creating a program landing page and that program has a very, very long title and you want to have a short one show up in the navigation instead. This is a great way to do that. After you set your menu link title, the next thing you want to do is set your parent item. So this determines if this is a landing page for a content bucket or if it's a subpage that falls within a content bucket. So I'm going to make this a subpage to Drupal training. I'll just quickly talk about URL path settings. This is where the page link gets set. So you can see here I've got Natasha's page -0. That's because I've already created something called Natasha's page. This is what happens when your titles are not unique. So I can uncheck this box and then manually affect what this page link is going to be. Most people don't do that. They allow the system to automatically generate that page link for them. So just keep in mind this is what happens if your page titles are not unique and what you can do to actually change them to something else. I'll skip over URL redirects. You don't really need that. Scheduling options, if you want a page to publish on a specific date, you can do that. You cannot use it to publish edits on a specific date. Just keep that in mind. So if you have an existing page that's already out in public for your website visitors to see and you need to make an edit to it on a specific day and time, you have to do it at that day and at that time. You cannot use your scheduling options to edit that one to publish that one specific edit. You can only use it to publish a page wholesale that is unpublished. Meta tags, this is what search engine crawlers can see when they index this page. So there's some tokens in there to make sure that they see something, otherwise they would see nothing. So they will always see the page title, your site name, a summary from the summary field above, or the body text field if you didn't use the summary field. And then these keywords will always be applied to the page. You can change them here so that they are more specific to your site and this specific page, or you can leave them as they are, and that way something is getting picked up for you. Authoring information just lets you know who created the page and when. And then publishing options is where you actually publish your page. You have the ability to have moderation notes, so if you wanted to put in here that you corrected a link, something along those lines, this is a great place to do that. And then your moderation state is what actually publishes it to the front end. So you can just open that drop down, change that to published, and then change it to save. The default state is draft, and that's so that you don't actually accidentally click save on a half-finished page. You have to actually tell the system that you want that page to be published. And now we can see my published page that is now visible to my website visitors. So we've got my picture of Ruffles here with text wrap because I chose one that's smaller than the full width of the content area. It looks a little bit funky here with my subhead, so maybe that's something I might want to change. I've got all of my text in there. I've got my button link that's going to the main site in a new browser tab. I've got my Gelman library promotion over here on the left. This Apply Now button, this is actually a repeating sidebar that has been set to inherit, I believe, site-wide, so that's why it's showing up even though I didn't indicate on the back end that I wanted it to. We can also see the quick links list that I put in there before. My navigation label is Drupal 101 page, even though my page title is Natasha's page. You can also see, because I set up those menu link settings, that my breadcrumbs are in place. So we've got home, Drupal training, Drupal 101 page. And that's also visible from the drop-down menu. In some cases, you don't want a page to show up in your navigation, but you still need to have the breadcrumbs show up. So usually this is article pages and event pages. You don't necessarily need them to be in your navigation. Sometimes even person pages. If you've got a lot of faculty or staff, you don't want every single person to show up in your navigation, but maybe you still want to have like home, about, faculty, and then that person's name. In that case, we're going to go back into new draft. We're going to go all the way back down to those admin settings for the menu settings. We're just going to delete the link title text, but still have our parent item set there. And now when I publish my page and click save, I can see I still got my breadcrumbs, but it no longer shows up in the sub-navigation. The content section for Drupal training is highlighted because that is the active section, but there's no more sub-navigation that shows up when I hover over it, and again, not in that left sidebar list either. So that's how you create a page that's accessible via a direct link, but isn't necessarily an orphan page. And the only use cases that I'm aware of that you might want to do this again are your event pages, your article pages, sometimes your person pages, but you really shouldn't be doing it with like your general content pages. They should always be accessible through your navigation in some way. Right now, if I wanted somebody to get to this page, the only way they could do so was by me giving them a link. So as a site administrator and as a content supervisor, you will always see this Customize This Page button down at the bottom. When you click on this button, you'll be brought into this layout, this interface really, called Panelizer. And it's showing you all of the various regions where you can have content. So in the top section, your middle, left, and right sidebars, and then all the way down in your local footer section. And all of these empty boxes and some of the filled boxes that you see, these are called content panes. They're all designed to hold specific types of content. If there's one that is on the page but the content doesn't exist, you'll just see it says placeholder for empty or inaccessible, and then whatever that item is, usually in a pretty unuser-friendly machine type way that only our developers understand. But really, they hold the potential for any type of piece of content to go into those boxes. And once you create them and add them into the page appropriately, those empty content panes will become filled. That's why you see something in this content pane. That's why you see something in your body content pane. That's why we see our little Gelman library promotion and our quick links list, because those items have been created, and I went into the right sidebar content and left sidebar content fields under the editorial admin, and I said I want to feature these items in my sidebar. So if at this point I decided I didn't want this quick links list to be on this page, what I do not want to do is click on this trash can and delete it, because that means that I can't have any quick links lists on this page because I've deleted the content pane for it entirely. Instead, what I want to do is go back into that new draft editorial admin, go down to my sidebar content fields, and delete that reference. And maybe now I'll add back in my green promotion instead. So that's how you would add and remove content from your sidebars. Something else you can do with the Customize This Page interface, I mentioned this during the presentation, is you can actually drag and drop items. So if I didn't want that in the right sidebar, I could drag it over to the left. You also will see the gear icon for any settings that are available for a given pane, and depending on what it's designed to hold, those options, the fields will be pretty repetitive, but the options will vary. So you'll typically see the override title option. This is what will go above it. If there's nothing there, nothing will show. When it's checked, you can just put something in there. So I could say my sidebar promo. Your display options, usually you don't need to change that. Image size, however, maybe you want to change the size of the image that's showing. So maybe I don't want that big square. Maybe I want to make it a little bit smaller. Be careful with changing the size of the image. On smaller devices like a tablet or a phone, they can be harder to see. So if it's something with some information in it, some text, and you're making it really small, that can negatively impact your users who are not on a desktop. I could also say entirely that I don't want to see the image at all, or that I want to hide the title. It's really up to me and what I need this particular piece of content to do. So this is where I overrode the title to say my sidebar promo, but this is the actual title of that promotion, green promotion, that will link over to whatever I had it linking to before, and that supportive text that's in there. So there's a lot of different options that you would get, again, depending on what you need your sidebar content to look like in the end, and you would get to that by clicking on that Customize This Page button, going into the settings for it by clicking on the gear icon, making your adjustments, and then once you're happy with what you've done, you click the Save button. If you don't want to keep your changes, you click the Cancel button. The system will ask you, are you sure you made some changes, you're going to lose them, and you just say OK. The other thing to know is after you've customized the page, very often you'll get sort of a funky look after the page refreshes, and that's fine. It happens a lot. You just want to refresh your browser, the window for this particular browser tab. Any questions so far? All right. So let's see. We've looked at how you manage your navigation on the page, but I also want to show you guys under the menu settings, there's a listing for primary navigation. That's what your navigation for your site is. So if you ever need to make any organizational changes, you'll want to go to menus and then primary navigation. It'll bring you to this list, which has a very nice drag and drop functionality. You don't want to use this to create links. Always do that at the page level. But if you decide now that, I don't want about to be the first thing, I want Drupal training to be the first thing, I can just drag it up to the top. The system will let me know I made a change, but nothing's been saved. It also gives me the visual call out of both this asterisk and the yellow highlight to let me know something changed, but you need to save it first. You just go down to the bottom, and you click Save Configuration. If you want to disable a link altogether, you just check this, or I should say uncheck the box under the enabled column, and then you click Save Configuration. Be careful with that. If we go to the home page, whether or not it did it. Okay, it didn't do it in this case, but be careful whenever you uncheck or disable a link, or actually, I know what it is. So I'm going to go back to menus and primary navigation. You can see here that resources is now disabled. I'm going to go back and enable it again. Sometimes if you decide that you don't need a link anymore, and you click delete instead, the pages, its subpages that fell underneath it, they can all end up in your primary navigation bar or primary navigation list if you've got a vertical list navigation. So be very careful when you decide that you no longer need a page that's in your navigational structure, that your site's not going to be negatively impacted by any subpages that fell underneath it. You want to have a plan for moving those pages out before you either delete or disable that link. And the other thing I should say that I failed to mention before, disabling a link only disables the link. It does not delete that page content. So that resources page still existed. We simply told the system it doesn't need to have a link directly in the navigation list. Any questions on the navigation? Okay. I believe that's everything that I have on my agenda. Are there any questions for anything that we went over today, or is there something I didn't go over and you have a question about it that you'd like to discuss or walk through quickly? All right, well, it sounds like we have no questions. So I'll be sure to share the presentation slides with everybody, as well as the video recording once it's available, and some of those additional resources that I mentioned, the accessibility videos. Um, thank you for joining me. I appreciate it, and hopefully I will see you at a future training soon. Enjoy your afternoon.